if you're looking to optimize and really manage your inbound deliveries and procurement processes, I will say that this is a video that you truly, truly want to watch. And these gentlemen are going to go into a lot more detail than I just did. But I am so excited to have SourceDay here with us today.
SourceDay. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of the organization, and we built SourceDay based on our real life experiences. My co-founder and I both come from manufacturing and supply chain backgrounds.
My name is Michael Miller. Great to meet you. Thank you so much for having us. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at SourceDay, responsible for product, ProServe, customer success, and support. So really, most of the customer touch points over their journey, making sure that they are having positive impact and outcomes on their business.
And the first question, and you already hit on this a little bit, but can you briefly describe what SourceDay does?
Absolutely. So SourceDay again was created really around the vision that my co-founder and I experienced in real world of getting buyers and the production planners and schedulers of organizations that manufacture and distribute finished goods out of manual processes. They were living in Excel, worksheets, email, fax, phone, text, anywhere they could do to get in touch with the suppliers that deliver their critical components. We deliver them a single platform, a single source of truth that delivers automation and workflows very prescriptive to the PO lifecycle, making sure that no single PO line gets missed and every single part has an accurate and up-to-date due date, ship schedule, price, and visibility to risk. So our customers can now plan production and scheduling that drives more accurate on-time delivery and improves revenue forecasting.
So, how are you better than your competition, and why would you like? How do you differentiate yourself in the marketplace?
Absolutely. Our largest competition to this day is still status quo. Organizations create the purchase order demand out of their ERPs or their MRP, material resource planning. And that generally is done through algorithms based on minimum inventory levels, lead times, parts and items that they need. POs get generated, but then they immediately move those POs into PDF, Excel workbooks, and then email. And that data becomes static and wrong almost the moment they do that. To the point of all the PO changes that you saw at your organization, 52% are wrong almost immediately. So we really have differentiated in terms of getting them out of Excel, out of static workbooks that generally become inaccurate and old and wrong the moment they send them to the supplier. So the biggest differentiator for us is driving real-time visibility and collaboration so that a buyer and their suppliers are on the same page at any given moment. And we do have competition in the very big enterprise, and I think where we really differentiate ourselves is we have a quick time to value. We are completely ERP and industry agnostic, so we can work with any organization that has a large amount of direct spend. Beyond that, our typical focus is really how we leverage the massive data set that we capture because we're transacting millions of purchase orders every single month. Last year alone, we captured over 100 million PO line changes. That data gives us a unique ability in market that no one can touch around data predictability and sensing using AI and modeling that allows us to start to predict risk and exposure to the buying organization from every supplier, even when they're not looking at all of the line items that they currently are working to buy. So that amount of significant data is probably the biggest differentiator because all of that flowing through SourceDay gives us data that historically was in email and Excel and uncapturable. So the transactional data is probably our largest.
If I may add one
Yeah.
thing there, you asked about differentiation. We actually have, in addition to a customer success team, we actually have a supplier success team. And so for the 100,000 suppliers that are on the network, we spend a lot of time both highlighting their great performance to their customers, thinking about their user experience, thinking about, our product can better serve their needs and make them more efficient and operate better to support their customers. So the supplier focus and supplier centricity is something that we think is different and really think
Yeah.
about quite a bit.
That's awesome. I think that's the first time I've ever heard about a supplier success team. So that's pretty remarkable. Okay, so you hit on this a little bit, but who is your target market and why?
We typically work with, as I mentioned, manufacturers and distribution companies. That can be CPG, retail, e-commerce, discrete manufacturing. So less process manufacturing. We do some, but it's primarily in the discrete. And that is really just due to complexity. Our organizations generally have 100 or more employees, sometimes upwards of tens of thousands of employees, but generally a minimum of 100. And then they have a high mix of parts or components that they buy from suppliers, from a generally high number of suppliers, and or at a high volume. One or two of those at a minimum of those three need to be a consistent static factor of the business. So they're buying from a high number of suppliers, a high mix of components at a high volume. And they generally are buying a large amount of their spend is direct material component spend. Beyond that, it's also an organization that probably makes several different parts. They don't typically distribute one or manufacture one component. They're manufacturing a product suite of components and parts and finished goods, generally creating more complexity, and our ability to really impact their inventory, buffer stock levels, and working capital is all a much bigger factor when they're at that scale.
I'm not asking for a price because that would be kind of ridiculous, but we want to know a little bit about how you price. So what can you be transparent on, like, what are your pricing options? How do you go about pricing in the marketplace?
Absolutely. I think we're pretty transparent there. We were originally and always a user-based pricing model, just like a typical SaaS or subscription software. What we noticed over time was that our organizations were getting so much efficiency, they were able to actually reduce headcount in some ways through COVID or other needs. And as a part of that, we're driving efficiency and impacting our business in a negative way. We've now evolved to share in, the growth and improvements and efficiencies that we deliver with our customers, with a subscription-based model that's based on the amount of spend that they have going through our platform. Generally a direct material spend, so the purchase order volume and the dollars behind that. As their revenue grows and they're becoming a more efficient, more scalable, high growth organization, their spend is going to grow relative with that. And that's going to be where we add the most value. Our customers are seeing incredible efficiencies and improvements of scale in growing their organization without having to add additional headcount in their procurement processes. So we tied our pricing directly to the value that we deliver to the customer.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the future. What should we be excited about when it comes to your vision and where you're going at SourceDay?
So I think what's most exciting is we've moved now from having about 30,000 suppliers in our platform to nearly 100,000 suppliers transacting in our platform, over 260 customers and growing every quarter. Those customers and those transactions make our data set even richer, providing a higher confidence of accuracy of sensing and predicting supply chain risk as it relates to your supplier's performance and your organization's ability to plan demand accurately. If a single component, whether it be a 5-cent part or a $10,000 custom SKU, doesn't show up on time for your production or for your distribution needs, you miss that revenue. You can't make that show up faster than it already can't. So, without expedites, without any other magic happening, our organization and our platform allows customers to have visibility in advance to take proactive measures to work closer with their suppliers and deliver more products and more finished goods on time to their end customers. All of that is happening because of the significant data set that we're able to capture. So the most exciting things that we're doing today is we're continually innovating, we're continually adding functionality and deepening the value to the customer.
Can you tell us a little bit about a success story with one of your clients that showcases the impact that you've had?
Absolutely, would love to. One that comes to mind is relatively newer success story. We've been releasing a new success story about every 2 to 3 weeks on our website. Braun Ability is an organization that manufactures mobility transportation solutions. They have a significant amount of components and suppliers that they buy from. They were having to hire more heads and continually increase inventory levels. What we were able to do through implementing our platform is we were able to reduce their inventory carrying costs by 22%. That was also during a time period where they were looking at making a multi-million-dollar investment in adding additional warehousing space. All of this was a result of our ability through prescriptive processes and workflow around the purchase order lifecycle, bringing their suppliers closer together. They were able to improve their on-time delivery. So all of their components and parts that come into their facility for the manufacturing processes was improved by 35%. That increases their confidence in their ability to reduce the minimum order levels on their inventory for strategic and commodity parts. That reduces their inventory carrying costs. And so improving working capital and also cash flows by not having to add additional warehousing in space. So this organization has seen very similar results to the majority of our customers, but this has been a significant improvement to their business, and they've been able to scale and grow, again, without hiring additional headcount.
Okay, one last question for you. So can you tell us the most common mistake that leaders make when they are looking at your solution and or implementing your solutions?
I think one of the most common things that I see in organizations, whether they're mid-market to large enterprise, is they don't truly measure a significant amount of the impacts we actually can deliver. For an example, most customers that we work with don't know their true cost of an hour of downtime. And they don't know how many times that's correlated to a supplier missing a delivery or having a late component. They don't truly understand their on-time delivery from their suppliers as a whole, or even per supplier or per component. And so I think we help organizations truly get a better grip on what they can measure. And then when you measure it, you can improve it. And so we bring a significant amount of measurement and data capture outside of the ERP, where they've got a significant investment. Organizations think an ERP is going to solve all of their problems. We have proven for 260 customers and 100,000 suppliers that when you expand the ERP outside of your four walls to your suppliers with a SourceDay platform, you can drastically improve significant measurements around working capital, revenue, and just efficiency generally with the business.
We're going to hand it over to Michael for the next 15 minutes to actually see the product. So I'm excited for this portion.
2 bits of context before we jump in, building on something that Tom said. You're going to see us talk about risks and managing risks. For us, we consider and we define as our hero metric on-time delivery. And so everything that we characterize and we surface as a risk is something that we think is going to be an impediment to you getting exactly the parts that you expect, exactly when you expect them. So that's something to keep in mind. So you will see here, this is the SourceDay all risks view. And there's 2 ways you could approach. We do also still have the ability to go through your full PO lifecycle. So this is sort of your inbox, so to speak, of all purchase orders that you have in flight with your suppliers. But again, we don't want you to necessarily have to spend your precious and valuable time going through the inbox. So we're really going to increasingly take this risk focus. Where should you spend your time? Not all suppliers are created equally, not all purchase order lines, not all parts. So we want to make sure that you can focus where you have the most risk to your inbound supply. All right, let's take, for example, across all of my purchase orders, I am interested in looking at, just for example, a certain set of risk. This is where you can see all the risk types that we have in the platform today. There are the ones that supplier proposed changes. And these are risks because it's supplier saying, I cannot meet either the commitment that I've made to you across either when it's due, how many, or what I told you it was going to cost. So we're actually going to surface those and let you manage them as risks. Unsynced changes. Tom mentioned this earlier, but our ability to have real, accurate, up-to-date information about your inbound supply and then actually write it back into your ERP so that your ERP can be more effective in its own processes is a big deal. And so we have some customers that they want to make sure that they are looking at and approving changes before they go into the ERP. Email issues. This is an interesting one because this is an utter black box today. If you're relying exclusively on your ERP to push out purchase orders, frequently we see that as many as 1.7% of those deliveries fail. It's a hard bounce. Your contact has left. You don't have up-to-date contact info in your vendor table, and so that bounces. And these are a huge problem because you don't know that it hasn't been delivered until the part doesn't show up when you're expecting it. Lastly, you'll see these risk types that are detected by SourceDay intelligence. This is our AI, our ML strategy, and you hear about that a lot these days in the market. There's a lot of confusion. Tom mentioned our data set. So we have $60 billion of spend in the platform, 100 million PO changes a year, significant number of messages back and forth between suppliers and buyers. So what we can do is we can pattern match. We know what green path looks like, and we know what red path looks like. And so we can surface those risks. The two that we're launching with are lead time risk, and I'll show you that in a moment, and missing acknowledgement, and I'll show you that in a moment as well. So in this context, I only want to, for example, look at changes for date and quantity. I only want to see them for my most strategic, my most important supplier, Chromax. And more importantly, I'm looking at date changes that are within the next week. These are parts that I expect to show up quickly. I've got my build schedules and everything planned around them. I've got my resources optimized. If these parts don't show up, there is significant impact to me, either via expedites, downtime, overtime, etc. So these risks matter a ton. I'm going to apply that filter, and it's going to take it down by a little over half. So here are those PO risks that meet those criteria. Furthermore, this is a really important workflow for me. This is what I log in and want to do every single Monday morning. This is my Monday priority. I'm going to save this list, and you'll see it's actually going to show up over on the left side in my navigation. So each user, each buyer can build these custom views, these personalized views for what workflows, what suppliers, what POs, et cetera, make the most sense for them. All right, now let's dig into these actual risks that have been surfaced here by SourceDay. The first is a proposed change from a supplier. Relatively straightforward, but can be quite disruptive to your business if not handled appropriately. You'll see something for the first time here. In addition to providing more detail on the risk type for this PO, you're going to see a recommended action by SourceDay Intelligence, again, using that pattern matching, and an action. We are never going to surface a risk without recommending a next step and then allowing you to actually take that next step to resolve that risk. Let's look at another one. This is the first time you're seeing lead time risk. What generally happens is when you set up a supplier, the parts, the price, the SKUs, et cetera, in your ERP, you're also going to assign a standard lead time in your ERP. And this is the date around which everything is planned. What we find is those are rarely updated, rarely trued up. And so there's actually quite a bit of risk just based on data accuracy around lead times. So what we're surfacing here, you can see is, hey, the standard lead time in your ERP says a delivery on March 1st. We detect that it's not going to be there for at least 1 week and potentially 2 weeks after. We recommend that you reach out to your supplier. We allow you to do that in platform. As you can see, we're going to generate an email or a message for you based on your preferences, so you can confirm in platform and very quickly what the delivery date is actually going to be. All right, next one, missing acknowledgement. It's fairly straightforward to see what POs do not have an acknowledgement. This is something we've been quite proud of, where we're actually seeing exceptionally high acknowledgement rates, and we know that those correlate directly to significantly improved on-time delivery. But what we're actually doing here is something a bit more nuanced. So you could see here, this supplier, this specific supplier generally acknowledges in less than 4 days. In this case, it's been 5 days. Something, again, is unusual, something outside of the norm is happening. We recommend you look into it and you get in touch with that supplier to make sure everything's okay. Frequently, this could be out of office. This could be, I didn't assign a new contact, et cetera. So we want to make sure that nothing sort of stays in that blind spot. Speaking of blind spots, we talked about email delivery. The vendor contact tables are, generally speaking, a mess. There's a lot of change in terms of your contacts at these suppliers. It's very difficult to maintain data. And this is, as I said, a blind spot of up to 1.7% of all the PO emails that get sent out by your ERP. What we do is give you 100% visibility to make sure that 100% of your purchase orders are actually delivered. Again, there's a recommended action. You need to go to your vendor table and adjust your contacts. So you can see across this top nav, we've been living in purchase orders and risks, and we are now going into my supplier contacts. We show you the one, we allow you to update, et cetera. While I'm here, you could see users of Promax metals, but you can also see performance. And this is where you could actually go in and start seeing supplier scorecards. We have built a couple of things into this, an enormous amount of configurability for your business rules, your expectation. Do you build your business around standard lead times or expected delivery date or promise date, et cetera? So we let you configure this to your business. And the other thing we're going to do is, again, given the breadth of that data set, we're going to take an outside-in perspective, and we're going to tell you how this supplier compares to your other suppliers, and importantly, how they are performing relative to your peer set in the industry. So you'll know not only how is that supplier performing for you, but you'll be able to understand where that supplier is performing differently for you than others in your peer set, in your space. So we're really excited about this. All right, that is current. What I'm going to do now is jump over to something that will be arriving next quarter, okay? And that is automation. The reality is an enormous amount, extremely high percentage of the changes that happen in your purchase orders are very small date changes, very small price changes. They're really not worth your time in the grand scheme of things. So remember, the first example I showed you is strategic supplier, very short lead times, high impact to my business. Think about the other end of the continuum. The other end of the continuum is really changes that I do not care about, small changes. So what I've done here is, in the same way, I filtered down to date changes that are less than 7 days. For my business, based on my inventory on hand, et cetera, I really don't care. I don't want to spend human time. I don't want people to go in and manually touch these. So what I'm going to do is go into my new workflow engine here. So you could see I'm in purchase orders. I filtered down to less than 7 days. Right now that applies to 120 purchase orders, and I get to build my action. I get to build my response. So in this case, I'm going to auto accept, and you see the little SourceDay intelligence sparkle here indicating that this is happening in the background. I'm going to auto accept. I'm going to send a message to the supplier. Yes, I would like to use the SourceDay template. We wait and we'll pull in purchase orders, dates, et cetera. If you like that, then you apply it. And you see my queue is empty because I've automatically processed all of those purchase order changes. No human intervention needed whatsoever. We've worked with customers on this specific workflow, and they believe that up to 90% of their PO changes can actually be resolved touchlessly, automatically. So we think that the efficiency gains here are really quite something. But we also know that automation is going to be new for a lot of these users. So we are implying sort of a trust but verify approach here. So in addition to my empty queue, I can actually go in and see. So over time, this blue, you could see how many risks were resolved manually that apply to those criteria. And then increasingly, we can start to tell you where those have been automated automatically. We can give you some scoring, give you some trending, and importantly, the full audit trail, timestamps, et cetera, as you go. So that's really where we are going through the end of the year. We're very excited. We think that this just removes not only a huge amount of work, but also really dials up the supplier collaboration, which we know correlates to on-time delivery improvements. We've got customers already today seeing as high as 96% on-time delivery, which gives an enormous amount of predictability and stability to their overall supply chain. So we're really excited about where we are and what is coming imminently.
All right, everyone. 3 things that I loved about what I saw today. I actually had a list that was longer than 3, so this is going to be a little bit hard for me. So I loved the concept they brought to the table around agility. And I know they didn't really say agility, but when I was thinking about their solution and how our supply chains work, particularly for their target markets, they're highly complex. They're very, very tight when it comes to margin and cash flow. So if you are in their target market and you're looking to reduce your inventory or increase your on-time deliveries, increase your ability to serve your customers, the agility that this platform offers is truly incredible for you to really get very, very tight management of that inbound process. So kudos to them for building something that truly has value to offer to their clients. I loved number 2, my second love of this was that they focused on the suppliers and they actually have a supplier success team. I have never heard of anyone doing that before. Leave a comment below if you've heard of others having a success team that's dedicated to their suppliers. I mean, they have over 100,000 suppliers on the platform. So that team is accountable for making sure that they're happy using the platform. Really, really intriguing to me. And then the last one, I'm going to kind of do a twofer here, is the insights focused and the automation that we saw in the demo. So like to be able to go into a platform like this and see actionable insights is where everyone needs to be focused. It's not just about having the data, it's about having action around that data. And like the lead time info that they shared, like, hey, we know that your lead time is this, but we're predicting that it's actually going to be 2 weeks from now. Oh my goodness, like that is a complete game changer. And the automation to say, okay, based off of these rules, this is how I want you to respond is really taking it to the next level, because at the end of the day, you want your resources to be focused on where they're going to have the most impact. And if something can be rule-based and automated, that's not where they need to be focused. They need to be focused on the bigger, badder, more complex problems that they're trying to solve in that inbound delivery process. So awesome, awesome stuff. I am excited to keep in touch with SourceDay, and I hope you are too. So three things that I don't quite love yet. I guess the major thing is making sure that more and more people know about this platform, because I think there are a lot of people. I was thinking about my customers at Wonder Services that have come to us with requests that are similar to what they're solving for. Almost every single one of my manufacturing based clients have this headache. So I guess number 3 is spreading the word and getting yourselves out there so more and more people know about you. And I would say that if I'm sitting in SourceDay, you guys have done a lot of great work over the last several years to be getting your name out there. But this video might be a little bit of a help to that, but I hope that more and more people get to know SourceDay and the benefits and the value that they're driving.